Hi guys, let's tune in. Today we are having a discussion brought to you in part by our friend Ghost Story Spark, who asked a question under our first video on behavior, saying, the hardest part is catching myself in that space before I react. Any tips on how to train that? Now, this space that our friend is speaking about is the space between being triggered, being stimulated, and actually responding according to it. So again, we have 3 different ways that we can be stimulated. That's the ones that I've counted so far, is our thoughts. I want to achieve this goal. I need to get up. My thought is impacting my action or causing the action to begin with. Then we have the emotional states. I feel this way, so I'm going to take this action. And then also our environment. Our environment is hot, so we want to take clothes off, right? That is an action to be taken because of the environment. Okay? Now, we're going to use an example to see how easy it is for us to be affected by these factors that are stimulating us. Because if we say we want to do something and we don't do that, what we're really missing out on is trusting ourselves, that we can say we are going to do something and actually be able to carry it out. And self-trust is a big thing. How can we even have relationships where trust is there if we can't trust ourselves, right? So the example is, I'm going to bed at night at 10 p.m. every night. That's the goal. What prevents me from being able to keep this promise to myself? Let's talk about environment. Let's say you have a big project at work and you have to stay up in order to prepare for it. Well, were there things that you could have done beforehand, or are you procrastinating? Is it a discussion that you need to have with your team so that the scope of work actually fits into the allotted time, right? Or let's say your house environment. Maybe it's loud, or somebody needs help at night every time, right? I need to maybe move out. There are different ways that we can change our environment so that it's not triggering us. Because my friend, that pause that we're talking about is so important, but I also want you to understand that it's not about us always needing to pause. That takes a lot of energy. It's about just creating a life where you don't get stimulated, right? Where you don't get triggered into doing something you don't want to do. And sometimes that's easier said than done, but we can have steps to get there. Okay? Now we have our thoughts. Maybe my mind is ruminating all night, preventing me from going to bed at 10 p.m. Let's say it is the work, right? Because these can be interrelated. That big project coming up. If you're nervous about the big work project, the question is this about a client? Is this about people pleasing? Is this about not having a good team, right? Or a self-confidence issue, right? There's something bigger at play than just the thought itself. We'll talk about it in a moment. And then we have emotions. Let's say you're hyper at night, and that's preventing you from going to bed. Chances are there's a part of your nervous system, in this case, the parasympathetic nervous system, that you need to bring into play so that you can learn to calm your body down so that you can go to bed at night, right? So I'm going to talk about these 3 different ways of being stimulated and how we can start working on having less of these triggers, because although we'll get into the pause in a moment, the goal is to not always need to pause. Create the life. Okay. Environment design is what we'll talk about first. Making it easy to achieve your goals. This is something that is somewhat spoken about in the book Atomic Habits. When you are trying to form a new habit, It's not, again, about seeing donuts on a table every day and resisting eating the donut. I would fail because I love donuts. But it's about not buying the donuts, putting it on a high shelf up top, not walking through the break room on Mondays because you know there's going to be donuts there. It's not about the willpower all the time of breaking the moment, creating the pause. It's about not needing it to begin with, making your life work for you. Okay, so we're going to remove as many triggers as possible. Then we have those thoughts, right? Remember, the mind is a tool meant to be used and usually to solve problems. The problem with the mind is that it's now creating more problems than it's solving. I know. So, one of my key rules of life, I will give it to you guys, is get to the root of the problem. New example, he didn't text you back. Okay. That may hurt, but if we think about it in retrospect, like somebody not texting you back, it's like, okay, there's many fish in the sea, move on. But that means that there's a deeper issue here, right? When was the first time somebody didn't text you back? And it's not even about texting you back. When was there a time where somebody wasn't there for you, right? It's hiding a memory of something you don't want to feel. Because we get so fixated on this person not doing something, thinking that if we can solve it with this person, figure out why they're not texting back, it alleviates that original memory. But why don't you just go to the memory, right? Life has lessons to teach us, and people are just puppeteers in the lesson. Remove the person and say, what is this lesson? Because again, the mind is just trying to solve it. But let's go to emotions, still using this example, that the mind is protecting the body. Not doing the best job. I mean, it's doing a lot. It's doing a great job, actually. But why don't we just go to the body? And in this case, if the first time somebody wasn't there for you, that's sparking which emotions? Your abandonment issues, your fear of rejection, your loneliness, right? Deal with those emotions. Start educating yourself or being there for yourself, right? Okay, somebody's abandoned you in your life. Or do you abandon yourself? You can at least start by not doing it to yourself. If you're lonely, why don't you enjoy your own company? The things you want from another person, just give it to yourself. And I know it sounds easier said than done, but we can do this. Okay? So, what we're going to do is limit our triggers. Create the life where we don't have people creating thoughts in our heads by the words that they speak. How many times are you around people and they're saying sly shizzle, or they're saying something underneath their tongue or their breath, or it's supposed to sound funny? That's not funny, guys. Oh my gosh, it's not funny. Somebody sparking the same emotion of loneliness, of abandonment within you. Maybe they're not supposed to be in your life. Or your environment. Is your environment conducive to the life you want to live? Right? I want to give you an example of this too, because I'm from Chicago, and a lot of us complain about our winters. just got a breeze from Wendy. And it's like going through every winter, 6 months out of the year or whatever, where you're dealing with seasonal depression. I kind of just got tired of it. Like, coming from somebody that has already dealt with generational depression, I don't need my environment contributing to this. I'm just gonna move, right? How many things do we want to change that we don't change? Now, this means recognizing your triggers, being aware of the people, of the thoughts you have, of the emotional states. What triggers these thoughts and emotional states? And yes, we're going to have to go back to memories sometimes to heal the things from the past, but we can also prevent ourselves from being in the same situation in the future. And my friend, again, willpower is the ability to create that pause. And that takes a lot of energy. And what we've been discussing so far has really been about trying to avoid needing that pause to begin with. But the pause that you're really talking about is between like the consciousness and the subconscious. And I hope it's okay that I'm telling you this, because I don't know you. And there's many different reasons why a pause would be difficult for you versus me. But saying that pause is difficult for you, it sounds like one of the potential causes for this could be the fact that your body is taking over. When you are triggered, the body is taking over, especially if that trigger is triggering trauma. It's triggering something within you that is like fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. It's quite difficult to be conscious when the body is taking over. That was the point of how God designed the body, is that I don't need my brain right now if my body is in control. If you go back to the nervous system lesson, there are functions that the body has that it can bypass the brain. So what you're talking about is not a you problem, I promise you. Like, okay, one thing is about the body. Practice your nervous system regulation and these tools to calm your body down so that it is not in control, and then you have control because you're back online. It's either one or the other, and not all the time, but when the nervous system takes over, it is in control. The body is in control. What you're asking for is to bring your consciousness online while this is turned on, while the body is turned on, and that's not what it's designed for. You got to turn this off. Breathing, think about it, being able to calm it down so that you can make conscious decisions. Now, the other thing that came to mind for a moment was the fact that we live in a society that, has technology and alerts, all of these things. It wants you to be on 24/7. It's programming us to be this way. Hence why I also mentioned do not disturb in my comment back to you, because I remember when somebody mentioned it to me and I was like, oh, like I always feel the need to respond when anybody messages me or calls me, even though I'm in the middle of doing something. What? And then on top of that, usually those people would not do the same for me. So I took a step back. For a whole year I'm still really on do not disturb a lot, but I was always on do not disturb. And I had some comments here and there, but it helped me to have a pause. I'm not looking at my phone until I'm ready to be on my phone. You with me? And there's people like mom, all of these things that you can allow to bypass that, right? And there's even a way to bypass it, say notify them anyway, if it's that important. But guess what? That's a boundary in itself. People are like, oh, she must be busy. Yes, I am. I'm doing something. It's none of your business. Even if it's reading, even if I'm like actually able to speak to them, like I am having time for myself. Me and my roommate do that all the time. Okay, so again, what you're trying to do is break the body taking over. Because when the body takes over, the subconscious pattern, the automatic response comes into play because you don't have the conscious awareness. It's just doing whatever it normally does. So, one thing that you can do, my friend, which is actually what I did, is look at the times where you responded in a way that you don't like. What is that repeated pattern that you're doing? What is triggering it? Who's triggering it, right? If you normally answer your phone, I'm going to put it on do not disturb. If usually when somebody asks me to do something for them, it's hard for me to say no, right? Be prepared according to who usually asks you and what they ask you for, and be ready with your response, your new one. Because that willpower, again, is quite difficult to do in the moment, but it is easier when you already have the response ready. Because now all I have to do is say it. Now all I have to do is do it. I don't have to think about what I'm going to do or what I'm going to say. You with me? So, come up with your responses ahead of time. And of course, we're looking back at the things we did, coming up with responses, because you are going to be presented with the same test again. God is just repeating the same test until we understand the lesson, until we implement that boundary, until we have the new response, until we learn the lesson. Because he wants that for us, right? Whatever we're manifesting, whatever we're praying for, we have to learn how to have it, how to be in that space. But again, one thing that AI told me as I was discussing willpower with it was that these pauses, the space, should only be used in terms of emergencies. Only when something comes up. It shouldn't be every day, multiple times a day, that you have to say no, that you have to cause that space. That's when you need to rearrange your life. Because there's something called decision fatigue, right? Decision fatigue is essentially when your decisions get worse and worse throughout the day, throughout time, because you're making so many of them that you have less, almost like accuracy to make the decision you would actually be making if you had the fresh brain, the fresh emotional state, because things have drained you throughout the day. So, decisions, let's just talk about for a moment. A lot of times I'm wearing the same thing on here because I'm somebody that chooses not to think about what I'm going to wear every day. It comes from this artist. I'll try to find it, but it's something that I don't want to think about because I want to use my brain to come up with lessons, to think of new ideas, to do research, to travel. I'm somewhere new, guys. Can you tell? But you know what I'm saying? This is what it's about, is that I want to use my brain power, my willpower, my decision making for important decisions. And not saying that the space that you're trying to create to break those automatic habits aren't important, but if they're repetitive ones, you should already be prepared for them. Friend, I shouldn't say should, because we're all on this journey, I should have at one point too, but now you can, okay? Sorry, I said should. But the other random thing, remember the quote that I told you about? It's from a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And I started researching that just a bit, and there's different points in it that I found to be interesting. But one thing that I will share that I liked, and I extracted from the summary, was having a goal bigger than the stimulation. So let's think about, for example, you're trying to create this pause. We actually are pretty good at the pause. It just depends on when we need it. Think about how many times your boss may irritate you, right? But you hold back your tongue because you need a check. Or maybe your mom makes you upset, but we don't curse at our mom, right? We don't do that because we have the pause when we need it. So essentially, a part of that book, the author was talking about was having a goal bigger than the stimulation. I'm able to overcome because I want something more. And for me, and for you, you got to choose what that is, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, whether it's yourself. And I was going to share that when I was first coming across this work, it was like me thinking about what I wanted one day. And that was a family and a house that was loving and just the happiness that I always wanted. And I knew that if I was going to be a part of that household one day, I needed to practice being that person. So I did a lot of things that I didn't necessarily want to do. You know, traveling the world was not something I wanted to do. Now I love it. And still times it gets hard because I was somebody that loved security. I loved my house. I loved my bed. I miss my bed so much. But I had a goal that was bigger than the pattern. Because really, the pause is there to break the pattern, to have the conscious decision. So again, regulating that nervous system so the body isn't taking over, so the mind has more capacity, coming up with those responses, and limiting the triggers to begin with, right? So I really hope this helped. And I also just want to say that if anybody else has other questions, I think I'm going to start it. Like when people have questions, like I'll answer because it's quite fun. I obviously like talking about this, and to be honest, I don't know about you, but I think there are people out here doing this work, but it's hard to find in your day-to-day people that want to talk about real change and the subconscious mind. So I definitely encourage you to go listen to that lesson so you can start understanding how to access your subconscious mind, understanding your thoughts to begin with. What are you choosing? Your emotional state, your nervous system regulation, and now creating the world, your world, to have less triggers that are affecting your behavior to begin with. So there's obviously so much more to talk about, but I'm going to end it here, and I'll see you guys later. Stay tuned in, and obviously you can see that I've pre-recorded a lot of videos, so I'll see you when I see you. Bye.